everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And we're real excited. We're here for, I guess this is technically part three because we divided the Disney Pixar into two parts. But we're here for our second part of the top favorite animated films discussion that we're having here, the series. And we're talking today about our favorite 2D animated films. But these are non-Disney films, and it's going to be super fun. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Matt Brunette is here.
Hey everybody, I'm back.
Yes, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. What about
Yeah,
you?
doing good, doing good. Getting ready for South by Southwest. We're heading out on Sunday, so it's busy time, but very fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So, in your opinion, what do you think makes for like a really memorable 2D animated film?
For 2D animation, I do think it's about how do you take the classic medium of 2D. I mean, the one that technically it started animation. How do you take something that looks like a flat picture, but then really bring it to life, really make it look like there's a lot of depth? And technically, with 2D animation, this is the definition of drawings coming to life.
Yeah.
So you have to really find a way to go and craft those drawings, and not only to bring them to life in a very convincing way or in a very artistic way with some of these examples that we do have, but also to make them feel real, to really make them feel credible. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate goal. Like,
Yeah.
how do you make people believe that these drawings are as real as you and me?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the nice things, though, also about 2D animation is that it's not really about realism. It's about the artistry. It's about the drawings. I think in CG, we concerned a lot more with it. Does it look real? Does it look like what we
Yeah.
know and love, or does it have that uncanny valley kind of a thing? But you don't have to worry about that with 2D. It is drawings, like you're saying. And that's what makes it, I think, so special.
Hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah. So we decided to combine anime and any literally use any form of 2D animation for this list, and we may do a separate episode just because we're having so much fun on our favorite anime going
Yeah, I mean,
forward.
like anime feels like a whole genre in itself,
Yeah.
to the point where it sounds better to make like a whole separate video
Yeah.
just dedicated to our favorite and some of the best anime movies that you could
Yeah.
find.
So we're gonna do it, but we do have some anime on our list, and
Mhm.
but why don't you get us started? What's your first one you want to talk about?
I'm gonna start with a big one here, and I'm gonna begin with the Iron Giant. When you do think about it, it feels like the kind of movie that, as time passes on, the stronger this movie becomes, especially with the message that it would go and convey. Because when Brad Bird originally pitched this to Warner Brothers, the whole concept of it is, what if a gun doesn't want to be a gun? And from there, like, we do remember like the buddy friendship between the kid and the Iron Giant himself. But really, this is a movie that, like, this is one of the most prominent and debatably one of the best anti-violence and anti-war movies that you could find out there. Because yes, it is true that it falls into the category of like the kid befriending this strange creature, rather it be from outer space or whatever, in the veins of ET. But it just works extremely well. And one of the major things is with the animation. I would debatably say that this is actually some of the best 2D animation to ever come out of Warner Brothers, even when compared to some of the works from the Looney Tunes. It is admirably good, admirably crisp. The designs are well, they're very well done, but it's especially the heart of the entire thing, that friendship that you see bloom, and not to mention with the giant, where he learns about he learns about life on Earth. He learns about the importance of not only friendship, but the bond that people have for one another. And one thing that is also worth noting, if we are going to talk about the Iron Giant, it's also worth mentioning about the signature edition, how they would go and add those extra scenes. And I remember way back, I think it was like over a decade ago, and coincidentally enough, it was on my birthday that I went to watch the Iron Giant on the big screen because they were first releasing the signature edition. And they even added some extra scenes, including a dream sequence where we learn about what is the purpose of the Iron Giant in the first place. And one thing that also, and this is just one thing that I realized that also works very, very well. Not many people often talk about this, is regarding that retro feel. There is kind of that retro 50s and 60s style that Brad Bird would go and implement. This is something that is also very similar to what we would find in something like The Incredibles, for example, like with those two movies. And like, especially with the setting is like back in the 50s and back in the 60s, but the storytelling as well feels like something that would come out from that era. So overall, it is a very heartfelt animated picture, a very strong commentary about anti-war and anti-violence. And yeah, like a lot of people would rank it among one of the best animated features period, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Yes, I agree. I have it on my list. So I agree. It's such a special film. I would say it's just one of the strongest animated films ever, not even just Warner
Mhm.
Brothers. It is beautiful, wonderful story. I love stories of friendship and unlikely friendship, and this is certainly one of them. And even if I was ranking even some of my favorite superhero movies, they would probably be up there for the Iron Giant, even though it's a like a kind of a loose tie to Superman. It's still there.
Yeah,
And
I want to say this is a hot take, but would you agree that the Iron Giant is the best on-screen Superman we've got so far?
I do love Christopher Reeve, but yes, yes, yes.
It is settled then.
Yes, it's such a heartfelt, moving, wonderful movie, good story, good characters. I mean, what else could you want in an
Mhm.
animated film? I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my number 10 is one that is, I think, a little bit influenced by nostalgia, but that's all part of our experience. And it is Anastasia is my number 10. I
Ah.
love this movie. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's just like a Disney copycat." I'd put it up there with any of the Disney Renaissance films. I think the songs are very catchy. I know that Rasputin is controversial, but I think it's a lot of fun. I really like the performance, and I uh, I I like Dark of Night. I think it's a very catchy song,
Mm.
and I love the romance between Dimitri and Anya. I think it's a great like romantic comedy dynamic to have John Cusack and Meg Ryan, perfect casting choices, and I don't know, I just love it. I love the songs. I think the story is engaging. Again, nice romance. That train scene is so well animated, and if we do an episode that's underrated,
Oh
even though this
yeah.
is beloved in a lot of ways, I do think it's still kind of underappreciated. I really enjoy it.
Mm. Yeah, I remember years ago I made a list of the top 10 most underrated animated films, and I remember I did put in
Yeah.
Anastasia. And the funny thing about Anastasia is that technically, yes, this does count as one of those Disney copycats because back in the 1990s, when Disney was really like at the top during their Renaissance era, there were a lot of other companies that were trying to be like Disney, and most of them have failed. And even Don Bluth, when he was, when he started out very strong with some movies like An American Tail and The Land Before Time, following afterwards, like after All Dogs Go to Heaven, suddenly he fell into the same trap of trying to catch up with what Disney is doing. And a lot of the results didn't really work as well, especially with films like Thumbelina or The Pebble and the Penguin or
Right.
Troll in Central Park. But then Anastasia came in, and I would argue that it is it's one of the very few non-Disney animated films in the 1990s that tried to be like Disney, but it legitimately worked, where
Yeah.
he managed to get the formula and actually got it right. And and again, I don't know if this would be another controversial thing to say, but I feel like what Don Bluth tried to do was very similar to what Disney tried to do with Pocahontas, yet Anastasia kind of did it a bit better.
Yeah,
Like, yes,
I agree.
a lot of it is rewriting history, especially with what happened to the Romanovs, with Rasputin, and a lot of those topics are controversial, but they do manage to work in their own storytelling way. Like,
Yeah.
you got Don Bluth's signature animation that honestly almost looks exactly like rotoscoping, but it looks beautiful. Like, he manages to get that art style work very well for him. The songs are very unforgettable, and and absolutely grand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love songs like "Journey to the Past." Are like, they
Mm-hmm.
are excellent. The
Yeah.
characters also, they are memorable. They have their own charm, and even some that you would think would be annoying, like, they actually work out well. Like Bartok, for example. Like, he's actually a pretty
Yeah.
enjoyable sidekick, or like a villain's assistant.
Yeah.
And yeah, overall, like, and even like the whole story of like self-discovery where Anastasia tries to figure out who she is and stuff like that. There is a lot of it that's very heartfelt. So
Yeah.
even though I don't have it on my list, I do understand the love for Anastasia. Definitely a solid feature.
Yeah, and I realized even how much more I loved it when I saw the Broadway musical because they took all the critiques of the movie and overcorrected for the Broadway musical. They made it really boring. They changed Rasputin into a general, and obviously they took out Bartek. We knew they would, but it just took out all the fun. Like, it made it really. It was like they were trying to turn Anastasia into Fiddler on the Roof, and but Fiddler on the Roof is more fun. It was just really boring, I thought, and I was just like, okay, now I like it even more. I'm
Yeah,
just
but
seeing this.
didn't that Broadway show mix elements with another Anastasia movie
Yeah,
from like all many decades ago?
yeah, the one with Ingrid Bergman in it, and
Hmm.
they just sapped all the fun out of it, in my
Yeah.
opinion. They overcorrected. So
Ah, that sucks.
yeah, yeah. But what do you have next?
Well, next up on my list, we might as well get into a bit of anime. I got Ghost in the Shell,
Mm-hmm.
the original one, by the way, because
Yeah.
not too long ago I reviewed the second movie, and I felt like it was doubling down on the elements that the first movie did great, and it was just like way
There's
too
so many of
complicated.
those. I can't even keep track how
Oh
many.
yeah,
There's so
no,
many.
yeah. Well, I'm specifically talking about Innocence. But anyways, going back to the original Ghost in the Shell, this is a movie that honestly, at first, it looks like your typical futuristic sci-fi action-packed anime, but there is so much more to it. I would debatably say that this is one of the smartest animated features out there, because not only do you get that very strong animation that depicts a very credible future where cyborg technology has pretty much dominated the planet, where there are very few like fully organic humans out there, and everybody has like cybernetic implants onto them in order to enhance themselves. And then they would show also how along with it, there's just very strong world building, and even showing some, like, not just like some of the things that make our lives richer and our lives better, but also some of the setbacks from it. Like, what if there's like this hacker that would come in and just like really mess things up to the point where like they can hack humans, and that's why there's like this element of mystery into it. Like, you got to find out like who's causing all this, why they're doing it, and all that kind of stuff. But and then there's also the characters as well, with characters like Bato and Matoko. Great solid characters. But also, what I do admire from it is how there is this philosophical layer, and not something that's like way too complex like Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, but something that discusses about what it means to live. It's a kind of like what we've previously talked about with Soul, is that this is a movie talking about what is life, where they would go and ponder about what it means to live, what it means to have your own life and stuff like that. And it's really something that is very thought provoking. And that as the scenes continue and as you watch the beautiful scenery as they would go and unfurl, and not to mention like the epic action that would occur, like it also makes you think, like it really makes you think about yourself, about what it means to live or your purpose in life and stuff like that. So it really goes down into it. It's smart, it is action packed, it is very well animated, it is a very, very solid animated feature. And not to mention, I would say that it has one of the best anime villains out there. I would argue like one of the more underrated ones, with the Puppet Master. Like that is a freaky character, that especially with the fact that you never actually see who the person is. Like like so far the only physical form that they presented was this cyborg woman that they hacked, and like that's their only way of communication with the others, and explaining his purpose to why he's hacking those people. Like honestly, like like especially in a world like this very cybernetic future, like a master hacker like the Puppet Master can be extremely threatening. So like this is one of those movies that's like it's a solid work all around, and easily among one of the greatest anime features out there.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest sci-fi person in the world, I must admit, but yeah, this is very beautifully animated. It has interesting characters. It brings up interesting ideas. It's one of those ones you kind of want to talk about after you've seen it, and so I can totally see why it's on your list. Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night, or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. My next is actually also an anime, and it's from director Momora Hosada, and it is Wolf Children.
Ah.
And I did really, really love Belle, but I didn't put it on my list because I just recency, I don't know, I'm just we'll see where it kind of lands in the next couple of years. But I love him as a filmmaker. He's a wonderful filmmaker. And Wolf Children to me is one of the most beautiful depictions of motherhood I think I've ever seen in a movie. The love that she has for her children and what she sacrifices for her children, I think is really beautiful and lovely, and just sort of following the journey of this mother. And a lot of times mothers get kind of ignored, or just sort of like they're just sort of one note characters. But here's like a fully fleshed out, dynamic woman that you tend to not see kind of portrayed that often, certainly in films, in animated films. Usually they're just a supporting role. And I don't know, I just think that it's a beautiful, beautiful movie about motherhood.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This is one of those movies that I know I should watch, but I haven't done so yet. I've heard nothing but amazing things about Wolf Children, and like I actually do have the DVD and Blu-ray. So like when the time comes that I go watch it, like like I
Mm-hmm.
know eventually it will happen. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the most that I could say. It's
Yeah,
one of
you'll have
those
to
like
let me
I must
know.
see it.
Do you have a favorite Hosada? Maybe you have one on your list.
Actually, let me double check. I just need to see like if there's some of the other works, just to see Mamoru Hosada, just to double check on what he has done. Oh dang. Okay, maybe.
Yeah, Grow Up Through
There's a lot that.
Time,
Yeah, I know. There's
Summer
a. Oh
Wars.
crap. There's a lot of these I haven't seen, but like I know I should. I'll get
Yeah.
back to you on that.
Okay. All right. What do you have next?
Okay. Next up on my list, let's see what do I have here. Oh, let's go into another anime movie, but this one, oh boy, this is a real freaky one. I decided to go with Perfect Blue. It is
Mm,
extremely rare that you would see animation enter into the realms of horror or any kind of like thriller or something that would
yeah.
make you scared, especially one that would be aimed for adults, because I know like there's the family friendly ones like Coraline for example or Paranorman, but Perfect Blue is probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, animated thrillers out there,
Yeah.
because here you have this pop star who decided to go and take her next step into her stardom, where she's known as like a part of this popular pop band, but now she decided to go and have a bit more of her own solo career. Think of like Beyonce, where she decided to go on her own after Destiny's Child. But in this case here with Perfect Blue, like what they want her to do is to go into a completely different direction than her regular image of being like this cutesy little pop star beloved by people of all ages, and decided to go into some like real raunchy and very adult stuff, and how that could really go and psychologically affect her, and not to mention some
Mm,
of the outside factors as well, with like there's this one creepy stalker, they really did so much in order to portray that guy as like a complete
yeah.
monster. But and especially with the kind of attitude that he has, like this very um this very obsessive reaction in a way. Satoshi Kon is putting in this commentary in regards to fandoms and like the kind of dangers where they would take it way too far. So honestly, it does add that interesting layer that unfortunately to this day, like we do still see some fans that they could be like too obsessive for their own good, and they become more dangerous than they probably intend to be. But from there, at the same time, you also see like a whole bunch of murders that are happening. People just like dying left and right that surround the main character's life. And while you're there, you're trying to figure out what the fridge is happening. Like, is she the one that's doing it? Is it the stalker that's doing it? So like you're trying to slowly but surely try to figure out, it's like, is she going insane? Is she doing it? Or is this all in her mind? Is it like the transition to becoming more of an adult oriented star, like really affecting her psychosis? But then like you have this plot twist ending that honestly is not only unexpected, but I personally consider, like, I'm not gonna say who it is, like if you know, you know, but I would say she is the greatest plot twist villain in any animated feature out there. Not only very unexpected, but like when you see who she actually is, it's like, or crap, I might have spoiled a little bit by revealing the gender, but when you see who they are, it's like, oh crap, like, oh no, they are dangerous. So it's like, no, you gotta run, girl, you gotta run. But yeah, overall, like, it's a freaky movie, but still a phenomenal work, and I would debatably say the best animated feature from Satoshi Kon.
It's tough. I don't think he had a bad film. I do love Tokyo Godfathers. It's got that Christmas connection, which,
Oh
a
yeah,
Christmas movie. So,
yeah, I love
uh,
that movie too.
yeah, he was so strong. And I didn't end up on this list, but having any of his, but I do love his films. And yeah, that's a great one. Great pick. Beautiful movie. Shocking movie in some ways. But a good pick. My next one, some people wouldn't consider this a movie. I didn't. There was no requirements that these picks had to air on in the big screen. And I think this feels cinematic to me. It's Over the Garden Wall is, I think, one of the most tremendous animated achievements of the last 20 years. The absolutely gorgeous animation, the unbridled creativity of each of the shorts, the great characters. I love War and Groot and Greg. I love Wart and Greg, and each one is just its own individual short. Each episode is own individual short of fantastical storytelling, and you get to learn more about this world and who these two boys are. And the music is so brilliant and creative and eerie, and there's such great atmosphere with each one. And I just absolutely love it. So it had to make my list.
Honestly, I don't know if I would consider that an animated feature. I understand because like the entire length is like just over 2 hours. So
Yep.
technically if you binge watch the whole thing, it would count as an animated movie. So for me, I don't know if I count that as an animated film, but I do agree it's one of the best things to ever come out of Cartoon Network. Such a phenomenal show. And also like very engaging and like it's very bizarre, but in a great way. In fact, one thing that I really do like about it, and this is something that I don't think any other animated feature has done recently. Debatable, like maybe you'll find like a few that have done so in the indie realm, but one thing that is so great is that what they've done with the animation is that this real, or especially with the whole thing with Over the Garden Wall, is that this is a throwback to like classic animation from their very beginnings. And I know like a lot of it is very mainstream nowadays with stuff like Cuphead, but no, like honestly, a lot of those like classic throwbacks, those are like tributes to like the 1930s and 40s. Over the Garden Wall is actually earlier than that. Like this is like a tribute to the cartoons from like the 1920s and the
Yeah.
early 1930s.
Like the
Like we're
skeleton dance and things like that.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, like we're talking about stuff like the Felix the Cat age, like not just with Felix but also like Alice's comedies. Like we're talking about like that full on
Mhm.
era where they pay tribute to that animation, and not to mention like there's that extra layer of like that creepy mystery, like it's whimsically creepy. I think that's the best way to put it. It's that
Mhm.
it's like maybe a little bit more whimsy than it is creepy, but like there is like that small factor there, but like then you get that fun whimsy. Like there are even some like little moments that like to this day like still stick into my head. Like there are often some times like I would just be going on my day and then suddenly in my head I'm like, oh, potatoes and molasses.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes. Me too. Yeah, I'd put it in there with like other great anthology films like your Fantasias and your, Sleepy
Mhm.
Hollow and things like that. That because there is a continuity between all of them. The storytelling continues. You follow
Mhm.
the brothers and what's going on, and so yeah, it's an unconventional choice, but it is definitely one of my favorites. So
Understandable. And by the way, just one quick thing. Like speaking of plot twists, like this is another one where like there's one episode in particular, one of the last ones that holy crap, it threw me off so much. It's like the kind that it changes your entire perspective of what the show is, like especially
yeah.
what it's about and everything. Like honestly, the only other time that I felt that way was the last episode of the first season of Primal, where suddenly
Mm.
like they show you a new concept and it's like, wait, what's happening? You mean it's not this? It's not this? It's actually this? What?
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's
honestly,
really
I understand.
special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, still like very understandable. I don't know if I would call it an animated feature, but still, like no denying that Over the Garden Wall is amazing.
Yeah. So what do you have next?
My next up is actually going to be The Prince of Egypt, one of the first animated features
Hmm.
from DreamWorks Animation, and honestly, one of their best ones. So of course, this is the classic story of Moses, and everybody knows the story of Moses, rather it be through the stories that they would hear in church or that they would watch the Cecil B. DeMille movie, whether it be the black and white one or the more popular uh, colored one with Charlton Heston and the all-star cast of white people playing as Egyptians, but that's another topic. But then you have the Prince of Egypt, which I would debatably say is the best adaptation of the story of Moses. And one thing that I find to be so admirable is that even though this is like a religious story, the religious aspect, while it is there, it's not like the prominent thing. It's not about the aspect of religion and stuff like that.
Mostly about the
Really,
brothers.
yeah, it's about
Yeah.
exactly. It's about the brothers that it focuses on the relationship between Moses and Ramses. And all the other adaptations, including the one in the Bible, like they're just straightforward to say Moses good guy, Ramses bad guy. But in here, they show that there is more of a complex layer where where with Moses, like he was enjoying his life, but then suddenly discovers his true identity and what is his purpose in life when he would talk to God through the burning bush. But then you have Ramses, whom debatably is not necessarily a villain per se. You know, this is someone whom, like, throughout his life, like, we see him having an enjoyable bond with his brother, but then when Moses would discover about who he is and his mission and stuff like that, it becomes more complicated, and that's when suddenly their relationship really begins to clash. So it's not necessarily about Moses's relationship with God, it's about Moses's relationship with Ramses. And they present that in such a human and heartfelt way. And then not to mention, I mean, you got like the other aspects that makes it so good, like the animation absolutely beautiful, and like honestly it's the kind of quality that is on par with what Disney was releasing at the time. Like this was like I believe this really was the movie that started off DreamWorks animation career to say that they are legitimate competitors against Disney. And not to mention the songs, considering that I believe Stephen Schwartz actually got involved with it, and it shows that tremendous gravitas, Pocahontas, like that power is there, especially with some beautiful songs like with Deliver Us, You're Playing with the Big Boys, There Can Be Miracles, such a wondrous soundtrack. You know, overall, definitely a great film. And I would say, like, easily the best animated religious movie, even though the religion aspect is, like, minor.
Yeah, I have that coming up. So I'll say more when I do, but yeah, it's a favorite. I love that film. So next is where I had Iron Giant. So
Ah, okay.
yeah, love that film, love the characters, love the story, love the animation. It's maybe a perfect film as far as like when I think back, when I think back on it, there's almost nothing that I would change as a critic. Like there's very few critiques that I would actually give to it, and so in that sense, it's kind of a perfect film. So, what do you have next?
Well, for me, I mean, we've talked about a bunch of anime, but I think now it's time that we go into the realm of Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
Kind of surprising with all the anime movies, and then suddenly it's like now we bring in Ghibli. It's funny
Yes.
because previously we mentioned like, okay, well, you know, when we had that subject of like, should we have anime in a different category? Like you were saying, like, well, most of these are going to be Ghibli, but like so far, all of the ones we've said so far are not Ghibli until now,
Until now.
where I'm gonna be including Princess Mononoke,
Mm.
debatably one of the most adult Studio Ghibli films that they have released. In fact, I believe this is one of the very few, or the only one that has a, or no, not the only one of the very few that has a PG-13 rating, and that's because it does get a little bit more violent. Not necessarily a gore fest, but yeah, there are some times where they could go a little bit extreme. Like there was literally a guy who has his hand like sliced off. Um, but what I do like about it, of course, this is Studio Ghibli, so you would have that beautiful natural world building that they would set up in here. But also, I would say that this is Studio Ghibli's strongest movie in terms about talking about the environment. Because with all these Studio Ghibli films, especially with the work of Hayao Miyazaki, nature plays a very prominent role, and especially with Hayao Miyazaki, he cares a lot about the environment. And in this case here, he brings up the discussion, but in a very mature way, where technically there are no villains in this movie. Like, I know there's a lot of people who would say that, like, maybe there is kind of an antagonist, like with the merchant, for example, and stuff like that. But really, there's like, even though there is like a legitimate conflict between industrialism and nature itself, like, even though there is that major battle, it does show how, like, it does show how both sides have their own personal reasons and what they try to do in order to go and survive, especially when they would go and fight against one another. Like, you got you got the nature side, in which there are some of those animals that have been infected, especially with what the humans have done and stuff like that. Like, especially when you see like giant versions of these animals, like with the giant boar, the giant wolf, and also like the very famous like the deer god. Like, I don't know if it's like a deer god, but like it is one of those creatures that is very supernatural. And no, well, okay, sorry for the pun, but it makes you look at it and go, dear god. But but yeah, so like, you do see on their side of how how humans are being careless in terms of of having their relationship with nature, and that they're sacrificing a lot of nature for their own living. But at the same time, you see the human side of it, like, you see the industrial side. And instead of going into the usual, like, Captain Planet or Ferngully route, where they say that the humans are evil for destroying the planet and stuff like that, what they decided to do is that they showed more of, like, how they're not that different than the ones in nature, that these are people who are looking out for one another, that they're doing what they can in order to survive, to go and help each other out, what they want to do in order to improve their living. So, really, it's one of those environmental movies that approaches it in a much different way, where it shows that the situation is a lot more complex than saying that humans bad with industrialism, let's save the environment. It's not necessarily that. It's a movie where it takes courage to have an argument about both sides, but unlike centrism in real life, it actually does a good case for both of the sides in this matter. So
Yeah.
honestly, it's thought provoking, and also a very beautiful animated feature, along with rich characters as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's an absolutely tremendous film. I agree with everything that you said. The only nitpick that I have with this movie is I don't think it should be called Princess Mononoke. She's kind of a like a minor character. Like, it's not even her journey. Yeah. That's the only thing I would change, is I don't think it
Yeah,
should be called
I mean, I
that.
get it. It's like sleeping, it's like Disney's Sleeping Beauty. I mean, it's not
Well,
like, even though yeah, technically it's about Sleeping Beauty, but I mean, Aurora is not necessarily the main character here.
but like even more so with Princess Mononoke, like
Mhm.
the Ashitaka, is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Anyway,
Ashitaka, yes.
that's the lead character. And so I don't know what you would call it, but I don't think it should be called Princess Mononoke.
Well, I don't know. Like, Prince Ashitaka doesn't have like a nice ring
It
to
doesn't
it.
have quite fair enough, but that's my only nitpick with it. It's a great film, no
Oh yeah.
question. And it's like, yeah, all those films you were talking about, Ferngully, Avatar, all those things. And Miyazaki was just like, I'll show you how it's done.
Mhm.
Awesome. My next one is also a Miyazaki, also obviously Studio Ghibli. It's My Neighbor Totoro is my next choice. I think this has some of the biggest heart of any of the Studio Ghibli films. You feel the loneliness of these two little girls and how much they're missing their mother, how sad they are. And one of the things that Miyazaki is great at doing is allowing his usually female little girl or young women characters to be sad and to feel all the emotions and to grow and have these incredible arcs, and it just endears you to the characters. And he's very honest about mental health and about the struggles. Whereas like in I think in Western animation, Western stories, oftentimes we just see our younger characters as just perpetually perky or perpetually whimsical, or you don't see the sort of low, unless it's something like a Lilo and Stitch. Sometimes you'll see that there, but I think it's just a very true, emotionally true movie. And so when they find the Totoro, it's not just that it's a magical being, it's that it's helping them get through this tough time without their mother. It's kind of a surrogate mother in a weird way, and it's so creative and inventive and beautiful animation, and so yeah, there we go.
I am not gonna lie. My Neighbor Totoro has always been the movie that I feel like I need to give it a second chance, because I
Mm-hmm.
remember about a decade ago, I did a review of it, and that was at the time before I understood anything of Studio Ghibli. I think it was one of the first Ghibli films that I've ever watched. I didn't really comprehend it. I find that Sasuke and Mei were annoying, so
Ah!
I didn't necessarily give it a positive review. Well, I mean, like, well, when you didn't know anything about Studio Ghibli, like the first 10 minutes is literally the girls going, so yeah, honestly, I do feel, but like a lot of people are saying that it is one of the greatest animated features out there. But I mean, ever since then, like I know a lot about Studio Ghibli right now. I've seen like almost all the movies, all the works that they have done. I've seen all the documentaries. I did a whole animation look back about it. So honestly, I feel like that's a film I need to go eventually rewatch again, or honestly, if there comes a day that I would re-review
Mm-hmm.
some animated movies, like review movies I've already done a review in the past, Totoro I feel like is one that I should put on the top of my list. I should go and like I need to give it a second chance. I need to give it another look. I need to go and
Yeah.
like reevaluate what it is. So like
Hey, and fair enough
I'll
too. We all have those movies that just don't resonate with us, and
mhm.
that happens. So if it doesn't, then that's fine.
So yeah,
It's a I just think it captures childhood loneliness in a way that's special, and uh so I mean, and I think we can at least all agree that the Totoro is absolutely adorable.
oh yeah,
Like,
no,
what an
I get
adorable
it.
creature. Yeah. So what do
Yeah,
you have
there's a lot
next?
of fun yeah. So yeah, but just to quickly say, like, eventually one day I will re-review My Neighbor Totoro. Next up that I have here, oh, we got a real fun one. I got another animated DreamWorks movie, The Road to El Dorado.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
This is one that honestly I've always loved. Like even as a kid, I remember watching this on the big screen when it originally came out, and I am so happy that it's one of those animated films that didn't get attention, didn't get much love, not even for the critics. Like it was a box office bomb. It wasn't well received critically, but then over time, it became one of the most beloved one of the most beloved films from DreamWorks Animation, and even like an internet sensation. And for me, like when I revisited El Dorado, I just think it is an amazing feature. Like we got like this is basically a modern tribute to the classic Road to movies with Bing Crosby and Bob Hope. And what they basically did is just they took that formula and they found a way to get to add in like this mythical aspect by introducing El Dorado into the idea. And I think like one major thing that really worked out amazingly, not just the animation, which I mean, just like what happened with the Prince of Egypt is just amazing, but it's especially with the dynamic of Tulio and Miguel. Like these are like two of the greatest animated duos that you could ever find. Like the dynamic that they have with each other is consistently funny. It's always enjoyable, and it's also heartfelt that like these are two guys whom like the only things that they have in the world is just each other, and then suddenly they become mighty and powerful gods. Definitely fantastic. So honestly, like so there is also some heart that they also included in there, where now with El Dorado it kind of puts them to the test to see if like maybe having all these riches and even like the introduction of Chell into the mix, like would it be something that could like stain the friendship that they have. But still though, uh just a wonderful movie, a lot of fun throughout, and like technically not necessarily a musical, but I mean like this is the only other time for an animated feature that Tim Rice and Elton John collaborated together, and that and like the power that you would have in The Lion King also resonates in El Dorado. And I mean, that musical number of It's Tough to Be a God is so memorable. Such a fantastic movie all around.
Can't go with you on this one, but I do agree that I think the music is good and I think there's some nice animation. I just found Tulio and Miguel to be so unlikable, and yeah. And I didn't like the way that I felt like the natives were portrayed as very simplistic and kind of stupid, and I didn't appreciate that. And I felt like Shell was very sort of one note, sort of this sexy, like she'd had no personality. And I don't need all of my female characters to be like strong women or whatever. I'm fine with that role, but I don't know. I didn't really appreciate her depiction in the movie. And but my main problem is I just found them to be total jerks, and I didn't so I didn't find the sort of humor and humanity that you found. But I haven't watched it in a while, so maybe I should give it another try.
I
But
will say,
yeah.
I will say, I think the hottest take that you just said in there is regarding Chell, because I know the internet simps for Chell. They love that character. So I don't know, like
She's
good
very
luck with.
beautiful, but I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
more,
she
from
is
her.
absolutely hot. But like,
For
I'm
sure.
just warning you right now. But I mean, I get how you feel. Like honestly, it's my same reaction as Mavis in the Hotel Transylvania films. I mean, 4 features and absolutely zero personality presented throughout.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. That's fair.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years, each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.
Well, my next pick is another movie about a mother, and that seems to often work for me. It's The Secret of Nim, and it's I think one of the most beautiful animated films ever made. And it's like Wolf Children. It's about a mother, and she does not want Mrs. Frisbee does not want to be a hero. She doesn't want to help people. She just wants to save her son, and so she'll do whatever it takes. And I think her being kind of this unwilling hero but rising to the challenge makes her a very compelling character. And I mean, there's so many absolutely beautiful scenes. I especially anytime there's the stone or whatever, and the beautiful light that emanates, and the power and the way that the beautiful music is integrated into the story. It's so like it's such a clever, inventive story. And yeah, I just love it. I think it's absolutely excellent.
you know, I am not gonna lie, that is literally the next one that I have on my list. So I might as well go and put in my whole piece onto it. So with The Secret of Nim, I think it's honestly funny because technically it's one of those chosen one movies where it's about one person who they turn out to be the chosen one to save everything. But the thing that makes it interesting is that with Mrs. Brisby, like you said, she does not want to necessarily be the hero. She's not there to go and like be the chosen one or learn what it means to be the chosen one. For her, she just wants to go and save her son who was sick. And like every time you see her like in this whole situation, it's like, what's going on? I just want to help my kid. I don't know about this whole thing. Like I know you love my husband, my late husband, so much, but I'm just trying to take care of my kids. Can you just help me out? Like I want to go home. She's just like that throughout. But I mean, with The Secret of Nim, I do agree with you. Like it's honestly Don Bluth's magnum opus. And I remember in terms of the history, when Don Bluth, like this was like right after Don Bluth decided to quit Disney Animation, where back in the back in the 70s and the 80s, it was a very low point at Disney Animation, especially when the company they lost Walt Disney, and they for quite a while they just had no idea what to do with themselves. So Don Bluth decide, and like with some of the recent films at the time, like with the Aristocats and Robin Hood and the Rescuers, where Don was a animation director, he just felt like that magic was no longer there, and he decided, like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna make my own animation studio. I'm gonna make my own animated movie, and that was his biggest goal with his own team of animators that he took from Disney, that he wanted to go and recapture the magic of animation that was lost. Like what Disney had is just no longer there. And the result of The Secret of Nim is just downright beautiful. And honestly, this is one of the few animated films that I feel like has the most credible world building, in which it is very fantasy oriented, but the way they would explain how the world works with all these talking rats, with the magic and stuff like that, it feels extremely credible. And it feels like something like, yeah, you know what? I could buy it that this could actually happen in our own world. That because of the crazy experiments that would happen in Nim, that somehow the rats would be intelligent, and that they would find a way to have their own society, to have their own civilization, and have technology and their own knowledge be so advanced that they can conjure up magic. And throughout this whole thing, like, it has a lot of heart. It has a lot of intense moments as well, and also like sprinkle in just a good amount of comedy. Like there is a bit in there to make it lighthearted for kids, but not too much. Like with Jeremy, for example, you would think he would be the kind that would just be annoying, that he would just put in these unnecessary gags, but I feel like honestly, like he's the kind of character, he's about to be annoying, but he's not.
Yeah.
Like he's just there. He is there just enough to actually be helpful, not just for Mrs. Brisby, but also for the audience as well, especially with his own little arc of trying to find Mrs. Right. So overall, with with The Secret of Nim, yeah, I also have it with my list, and it's just a phenomenal feature.
Yeah. I agree. All good, very good points. So my next choice is the first movie I think I literally cried in my review on here on YouTube. I and it's a very special movie to me. I'll explain sort of personal connections. It's The Song of the Sea by director Tom Moore. And I could have put almost any of his movies in here, but this one has more of a personal connection. When I saw the movie, my cousin had just passed away about 2 months before. She had 2 little boys, and her little boy spoke at the funeral, or there was like a testimony portion. He got up, and her little boy said, like, I don't know why my mom had to go away. And we were all like dying and sobbing. And when I saw The Song of the Sea, I just connected so much with Ben, this little boy who just lost his mother. because I had just experienced, this with my cousin, and how the fact that he, at the end of the movie, he gets to say goodbye to his mom and they have that moment together. I literally just like sat there in the theater for like probably 10, 15 minutes because I was inconsolable. I was so upset. And it's not just that personal connection, but the arc, the growth of Ben as a character, and him going through like the resentment that he feels for his sister, because his sister literally took his mother away from him, and the sort of the arc that he goes on as a character, I just thought was beautiful and moving. And the incredible animation, the incredible music. There's also like enough whimsy with the owl queen, all those holding all those memories in the bottles because she's still mourning her son. So there's like that layer. There's his father who's like stuck in grief and loss, and all those themes, I just really connected with. And it's a very I just think a clever story with the Selkie, and also the relationship between Ben and his sister, how he's able to forgive her by the end. I just love it. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that with Cartoon Saloon's Irish folklore trilogy, like they're all masterpieces in their own right. I love all of them. Like with The Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, and Wolf Walkers, fantastic features in their own right. And funny enough, with Song of the Sea, like I remember watching it the first time and honestly didn't like it that much because back then, like I was so in love with The Secret of Kells. I watched it and I was like, in comparison, it's not that great. But then I reviewed it. Then, like years later, I did rewatch it again for a review. And then I was like, okay, now I get it. Yes, this is a fantastic feature. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favorite of the bunch. We'll get to that one later, but it's still a great feature all around. Like they still did a very solid job. Like especially with the heart, with Ben and Saoirse, and then adding in the Irish folklore into all this. Telling this entire story and like this whole journey about Saoirse's purpose as this seal mermaid. So through all of that, like it is very tender. That's
a good word to describe it. Tender.
Very tender. Very engaging, especially with the world building. So and like the animation, I mean, like of course, just absolutely gorgeous. So overall, yeah, great pick. Understandable.
Yeah. And it was kind of cool because since I did cry in my review, somehow Tom Moore found out about it, and I guess shared it all around the Cartoon Saloon team. And then I ended up actually getting to interview him, which was like career highlight, of course. So that's on the channel if anybody wants to see. But what do you have next?
For me, well, I feel like no list of the best animated features would be complete without Spirited Away. I mean, we're talking about the best animated features, so Spirited Away has to be included, and I do consider this to be Hayao Miyazaki's magnum opus. Such a phenomenal animated feature, and like honestly, one of, if not the greatest example that you could find of how world building works, because this is basically this little girl who suddenly dragged by her parents, where they decided to explore this abandoned amusement park, and that also features this giant bathhouse. But then suddenly things really go topsy-turvy when suddenly the fantasy elements come in, where the parents are literal pigs right now, and then suddenly the ghosts suddenly appear, and you see a wide variety of all these different spirits where they're just relaxing in the bathhouse. And then you got Chihiro, where she has to find a way in order to free her parents and to basically get out of here. But throughout that whole time, You get to see how this bathhouse works. You get the time to actually know a lot of these characters, and you see Chihiro's journey into not just like rediscovering who she is, because when she signed a deal in order to work in that bathhouse, like everything is taken away from her, even her name, her identity, and even her memories. So eventually, with the help of like some of the others in there, she would slowly get her memory back and try to fix things up, like not just what like some of the conflicts that are happening in the bathhouse, but also with some of the individual characters as well. So honestly, with all this, it's like one of the most immersive animated features that you could find. It's the animation just absolutely gorgeous. It really does feel like you're transported into another world. And while this is not like, maybe it's not necessarily the most exciting animated feature out there, that's not necessarily the point. Yes, there are some intense scenes, rather it be Chihiro running away from No Face when he's like so hungry, or the time when she would have to do the ultimate challenge in the bathhouse, which is to clean to clean this like disgusting garbage spirit, which turns out to be the river spirit, which kind of adds in like a subtle environmental commentary right there. But then there are parts that are so calming, that are just there are moments where you could breathe, you could just relax, and those are some of the most impactful and memorable moments, and even relatable as well. Like a lot of people would comment that like the biggest highlight of them all is just the scene where Chihiro and No Face are just sitting on the bus. Like that's it. It's just them like on their way to meet up with Yubaba's sister, and they're just waiting for their destination. And honestly, the way that they reflect upon that whole travel is just beautiful. And not to mention the score by Joe Hisaishi. Honestly, I feel like it's one of the most impactful. Even when I'm just listening to my music, sometimes I put on the soundtrack of Spirited Away. I remember when I went to go and watch it on the big screen, I think like with the enhanced experience, the thing that impacted me the most is the soundtrack, like how it was so elevated, and how like they really like how that really helped transport you into that world. So honestly, like with the music, with the animation, with the world building that they got, yeah, it's a phenomenal piece of animation.
Yeah, I have that coming up. So we'll talk more about it. But
Well then,
absolutely, it's one of the most original, maybe the most original movies I've ever seen. Like you just never know whether it's gonna be the giant baby, or is it gonna be the boy turning into the cranes that turn into paper. Like it just, every step along the way is a new image that I've never seen before, something creative and inventive. And so it's so satisfying on that level, and just the journey that Chihiro goes on. Again, Makoto, what am I saying? Miyazaki loves taking these usually young girl characters, and being emotionally honest and true with them, and then taking them on a journey as they grow. And he's really just incredible at really getting in the mind of these characters. And I mean, I don't have it on my list, but Kiki is another great example of that, obviously,
oh
of
yeah.
really showing the growth of her character through the course of the movie, and being like emotionally true. And he's great at that. The next on my list is The Prince of Egypt. We talked about it a little bit, but yeah, I'm a spiritual person, and to me, this movie captures the experience of spirituality that I have in my life. In the sense of, I think it's very reverent, it's very peaceful, and as opposed to the Heston film, or some of the other versions of Moses, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And in
Moses,
this,
Moses.
the scene at the burning bush, it's very, very calming, very peaceful. It is how I would imagine God is this burning bush scene. And
Mhm.
and yeah, the dynamic between the two brothers, the incredible song, Stephen Schwartz. at the height of his powers. Incredible. The absolutely beautiful animation from with the parting of the Red Sea. I know some people are like, there's no whales in the Red Sea. I don't even care. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's just very special, I think. I mean, the only, if I was nitpicking, is I don't think it needs the celebrity voices. I think they're like a tiny bit distracting. And I could have, because I'm just thinking, why is Jeff Goldblum in this movie? Or, like, I don't need Sandra Bullock in this movie. But that's about it. I mean, the priests are a little cringy, but they're also kind of fun, and you need a little bit of lightning. But yeah, I think it's an absolutely amazing film. And so what do you have next?
For my next up, you know what? Considering we've already talked about Song of the Sea, I might as well go in with my pick. In the Irish folklore trilogy, I went with Wolfwalkers.
Yeah.
I feel like the trilogy had an amazing grand finale. Like, they set the bar very high for films like Secret of Kells and then Song of the Sea. But then Wolfwalkers, on the other hand, oh my God, it really does bring in the best of the two in order to craft this wonderful animated feature. Number one, the animation, like this.
They literally invented a whole new kind of animation for it.
Oh yeah, but I mean this the stylized animation that it really looks like it really looks like medieval tapestry just suddenly coming to life. Like a lot of the shots where it's just like, this is what I was talking about at the very beginning of drawings coming to life, where you got these flat images telling you this very impactful story. Like, it really works out beautifully well. And then you also got the characters as well, like very memorable, very lovable as well, where like they do have their element of fun, but also they do have their element of tragedy. Like, you got the main character whom she, she originally was just a huntress, but then has to conform to the traditionalism that's happening in that village, where she just has to be this, she just has to live her life as a maid, which, I mean, like, the life just really very much sucks. But then you got the other character as well, the other one, the little wolf walker, where like she's just bursting with life. She just loves going, she is all about like being wild, about the life of the wolf and stuff like that. But then there is that element of tragedy in which also some environmentalism is there, in which the kingdom nearby is just taking more and more of the land, which which gives a lot less room for the wolves and for nature and for the animals. And like, there is a bit of a dire situation, because like the head honcho of all that, the mom, like, she's like in perpetual rest. Like, she's not waking up from that eternal slumber that she is having, which does add into that element of like again, like that tragedy that is going on. But then also at the same time that you see the main character suddenly becoming a bit of a wolf walker herself. And just overall with the experience, like with a very engaging story that they do have, that's just that like is very character driven, but so like carries a lot of heart and really packs a punch. It's just a fantastic movie. So yeah, that's honestly my personal favorite animated movie of the Irish folklore trilogy. And considering that it did came out in 2020, I would say that so far it is easily among the best animated movies that we've got this decade.
Yeah. It was a very special film, and I completely agree with everything you said. The animation, the music, the relationship between the two girls, the what the lead character kind of learns about her father, and that her father can be flawed. And that's been a big theme of animation the last decade, is sort of our child protagonists kind of butting up against their parents in a way that wasn't, when we were seeing movies. And this is one of the better examples, I think, of that. of
Yeah, it's basically it's basically generational trauma. Keep in mind, folks,
yeah.
it ain't Disney exclusive. Others have been doing it too.
Exactly. But this is a very good version of that, I think. And if I didn't have that like personal connection with my cousin, I think that, you know, it would be a tougher kind of debate. But they're both excellent films, so good choice.
All three of them are excellent films,
They
including
really are.
We got to mention The Secret of Kells as well. That's
Yeah.
another great film.
It is. That one is really great.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
All right, my next one. I know we disagree on, but let's talk about it. See if maybe I could convince you a little bit. Let's talk about Your Name. Your Name is by Makoto Shinkai. And there's a couple of things I think are really special about Your Name. I am a spiritual person, and I think what the movie has to say about spiritualism is really lovely and beautiful. And that it's this spiritual connection that the two have that allows Taki to save Mitsuha. And that's why it's more than just their names. It's actually they've been in each other's bodies. They know each other on a deeper spiritual level. They're literally connected. And when he goes into the train and he feels her spirit calling to him, he knows it. Everyone else thinks that he's crazy, but he's lived in her body. He knows her in a special spiritual way, and he feels a calling, and he can't explain it, and he doesn't understand it, but he knows it's real. And that is something that I definitely connected with so much, is Taki's journey as a character, as he feels Mitsuha calling to him, and as he eventually he's able to save her, and they're able to, and that's what makes the ending so moving, because when they're passing on the stairway, they feel each other. They've lived in each other's bodies. They have that spiritual connection. So they see each other, and they know, okay, this is it. This is the person that I have been waiting for all of this time, and I knew it. And so then I know your name. And I think that it's also a movie that satisfies so many different needs in storytelling. It can be really funny, especially at the beginning when they're swapping bodies. And the idea of I think it is funny, a young girl being in a young boy's body, and a young boy being in a young girl's body, and be like, oh, whoa, these are different, and that's funny and well done. But it also can be quite tense when they are trying to convince her dad to do the right thing, and the tension when she falls, and she's just trying to get them to save all these people from this comet. They know it's coming, and so it's tense, but it's also really, I think, very calming in a way, with the comet and with the Radwimps music. And again, this ending when they see each other on the stairs. And so it has a spirituality to me that makes it really special. And the music by Radwimps is really wonderful. And the animation, absolutely beautiful, stunning. It's like nothing that I had ever seen before. I'd never seen a story quite like this. And I finished watching it because I saw it first on a screener. And I immediately wanted to tell everybody that I knew about it. I was one of those, guilty. one of those people. They wanted to tell everyone
You
about
broke
it.
your embargo. How dare you?
Because it was so inventive, creative, moving, and great characters. I just loved it, and I still love it. And every time I watch it, I see a different nuance, a different part of it that I hadn't noticed before. And something, you know, whether it's in the Saki blessing that they have, or in the band, literally a band that they're connected by. I see things with the grandma and her, how she's aware of everything that's happening. You wonder, did she also have an experience where she swapped bodies? It seems like yes, that she did, and which is interesting. And I just love it. So that was my best defense of Your Name.
You know, I must say that there is one thing that you forgot to also mention about like the spirituality, that they know each other very well when they would swap bodies. You forgot to also add that Taki has also felt her body as well. It just became this morning routine. I was like, oh, I'm on the girl's body now. Might as well be groping.
It would be kind of shocking if all of a sudden you were in a female body.
No, okay. Let me just clarify this now. I don't think Your Name is bad. I do think it is a very solid movie what they did. Like the beginning of it, like it is engaging, and I do see how it can be fun where it has this Freaky Friday like narrative, and it does capture a little bit of that spirit as well. So like, okay, that part it can be fun. I also do find that it is interesting where they do add the twist in the middle where suddenly it's like, suddenly everything changed when you learn about the whole meteor, like the whole what is it, a comet? Yeah, a comet.
Yeah.
Like when the whole incident with the comet, it's like, yeah, you just got, yeah, like apparently, like, yeah, you're swapping bodies with a girl from 3 years ago, but that nowadays she's just flat out gone. And of course, you got the animation as well. That I do find it's like very beautiful. Like some of the best, some of the best non-Ghibli Japanese animation that we've gotten in recent years. Like there are some moments that, like, it can be so stunning. Like especially the traditional dance that Mitsuha would do at the beginning. Like
That's
honestly,
true.
suddenly the flow of it is just like, it's extremely smooth.
Yeah.
Like it's honestly it's like, it's not necessarily the dance itself, but just the flow of the dance is so mesmerizing. And also I do like the other characters as well, but especially like this plays into the world building where it really it really does a good job enhancing the life of both Taki and Mitsuha, and you see their how their lives are going, and you get to know the other characters that are part of their lives. So they constructed that very well. Now, it's a very solid movie. I definitely agree. It is definitely good, but I don't think it's in my opinion, I don't think it's the kind that is good enough to put among like a best animated features list. And the thing that kind of falls apart for me, I just find the relationship between Taki and Mitsuha, it gets increasingly cheesy. Like suddenly it gets to the, like, honestly, when I recently rewatched it for my review, like honestly, I was getting down with it. You know, it seemed like, it seemed pretty solid. You know, I was thinking, it's like, okay, no, it's like, it's going great so far. It's like, well, it's like, I don't understand why I was being critical. And then the more they get into Taki and Mitsuha, and then showing that whole mission of like having the two meet together, suddenly the memories come back of like, oh yeah. Because from there, it suddenly just becomes a lot more cheesy. Like it becomes very melodramatic. And no offense, Rachel, but it starts to feel more and more like a Hallmark movie or something that you would see on the Disney Channel with that kind of
that only adds to its appeal for me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I get it for you. I get why you would love it. But it's just for me, like, suddenly it just becomes a little bit too over the top. And especially, like, right at the end, it feels like it hammers in way too hard in terms of, like, why this movie is called Your Name, where it almost becomes like a drinking game where, like, you take a shot every time someone says your name. And also, like, when it comes to the whole when it comes to the whole phenomenon of like the swapping bodies, like it is interesting at first, but I feel like it doesn't necessarily describe enough about how it works. And I end up feeling like there's more questions that I have than answers. Like, yeah, there's that one part where the grandmother actually knows about what's going on, and she knows that Mitsuha is not Mitsuha when Taki is taking over. But then, like, yeah, they have the discussion. It's like, oh yeah, it runs in the family. How though? Like, can you go into it? Can you talk about your experience? But no, it's like they suddenly stop that conversation, and it's like, listen, a meteor is coming, and she's just there like, oh, and
Yeah,
that's
I mean, it has to do with the spirituality and the actually putting their spit into the sake, and that makes, it's magic at a certain point. Like, what are you gonna do? But like,
oh
no,
god,
I mean,
you
I
remind me
think
of that scene. That's like, ew.
I think that all of those critiques are actually super fair. I can't really argue with, because there is nobody that is as much of a melodramatic romantic than Makoto Shinkai. I mean, in Weathering with You, literally the entire city is
Yeah,
covered in water.
that's true.
It's
Yeah,
like everybody, but Makoto Shinkai doesn't care about that. All he cares about is these two people finding love, and that's it. Like,
yeah.
we're supposed to think that that's a happy ending to that movie, and I'm fine
Yeah,
with it. But like, it's just kind of hilarious.
I will admit, I love Weathering with You. I personally do prefer Weathering with You and Suzume over Your Name. But even I'll admit, when I saw Weathering with You, as much as I loved it, I thought it was so weird when you would see like, oh, wait a minute, like, okay, so love is more important than the entire city of Tokyo? Like, we're not gonna bring up the fact that the whole city is freaking flooded?
Yeah.
Like,
It's not a
like
bittersweet ending for him at all. Like, it is a happy ending for Makoto Shinkai. The man is a romantic. I mean, no question. So yeah, I think that I will accept. It has its cheese and melodrama. I do.
I understand. Sorry to interrupt, but I understand. Like, love conquers all, but like, this is a stretch.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So yeah, I think that is fair. But I guess I just really connected, especially with Taki feeling that spiritual pull and not being able to explain it to anybody, not being able to understand it even himself. He feels it on the train. He goes to the city to try what is calling to him, right? And I think that a lot of us that are spiritual people have had that experience of like, we feel it. It's as real as anything that is anything else that's real in our life. It is a concrete thing that we are grappling with and trying to understand. And but yeah, to other people it seems
Taki has done a lot of grappling.
Like, to other people it seems crazy, and to other people it's so his kind of journey is something I definitely, as a spiritual person, I really connected with, and I think that it's one of the better portrayals of sort of faith and a spiritual yearning, I think, that I've seen. And that's why I think it would be so stupid if they remake it and move it to America, because the whole core of the story is all about this spirituality of and their beliefs. And so if you take it to another, like, you would just lose that, and you wouldn't have the band, you wouldn't have the sake, you wouldn't have any of the things that connect them together. It would lose its soul. And so I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I mean, people are sick and tired of live action remakes, not just from Disney, but in general. I don't know, like, we don't need a live action remake of like, I just
think the cultural and spiritual traditions are very important to the movie.
Yeah.
You can't just put it in another place.
No,
but
yeah. No, but I will say though that like I completely understand why you love it. Like, I know there is an audience who absolutely adores it, and in a way I kind of get why it is such a big phenomenon. It's just like, for me, I feel like it's a little too overhyped, because like I'm not into that element of the romance, but I still find it a good movie. In fact, I'll even say now, because by the time this is released, like I'll already have my review out. but I do think it's a solid movie. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's definitely solid. I just don't think it's like best animated feature movie.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Are you at your last one? Are we there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already on my last one.
Okay.
I
Same
decided
with
to do something completely different, and I decided to go with Yellow Submarine.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
this one I feel like it's a combination of so many of the best elements out there, and you just put it all together to create this very unique experience. I would say almost it's almost in the same ranks as Fantasia in how experimental it is, but how it works so well because like a lot of people know this is one of the most psychedelic animated features out there, and it's kind of like in its own world where it doesn't necessarily follow the same kind of like filmmaking traditions or the same kind of animation rules. Like the reason why it is so admired, it's not necessarily because of like how smooth the animation is, because like admittedly there are some parts that can be pretty janky, and it's not because of like how the story, how the storytelling works so well, because like there are some parts that can be so weird. In a way, it's kind of like its own Alice in Wonderland style world where it's one of those where like you would expect the unexpected, and the movie mostly revolves around some of the later Beatles songs, specifically some of the psychedelic ones, like with All You Need Is Love, or When I'm 64, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, of course, Yellow Submarine, Eleanor Rigby, and so much more. Some could say it's more like a series. They still work well where they feel like even though nothing makes sense in all of this, like it still feels like one unified picture where you're transported into this very unique world. And with the animation itself, I would say like it is very admirable, maybe not necessarily in an animation sense, but in a pop art sense. Like this legit feels like art coming to life, especially with with all the use of colors, the way they design the characters, like taking the Beatles and make them look very unique, how they presented Pepperland. It's reminiscent again. It's like a bit of a combination of something like Fantasia and Alice in Wonderland to bring you to this unique world with like such phenomenal music. It just works out so well in its own way. And also, I just want to bring in like another an honorable mention, one that I find to be super underrated. It's an animated movie from Europe called Son of the White Mare. This is another one that is very unique, very psychedelic, but it works in its own beautiful way. And I feel like with Yellow Submarine, it's one of those that I would add among the best animated features out there. Like just with the way they make animation look like a work of art, the way that they integrate the Beatles music onto this, and especially with the very unique world building where you're in a world where you have to expect the unexpected. I just feel like it's one of those films that like what it sets out to do, it works out perfectly, and like one of the best visual representations of like the late 1960s, of like the psychedelic age.
Yeah, I've seen it one time. I actually saw it on big screen, which was kind of cool at there's this theater called the Tower Theater, which has been closed since the pandemic, but they would do these summer movie nights, and I got to see Point Break, I got to see Yellow Submarine, I got to see just a bunch of Akira I saw there. So that's really fun. It was very creative and unique, and so I can see why it has a great songs. So I can see why it would be on your list. My number one, we already talked about it, is Spirited Away. Just maybe the most creative, inventive, original film I've ever seen. Every frame is a new idea, new imagery. It's so beautiful. It's I like Chihira's journey as a character. She goes from being this kind of whiny young girl to being this strong, independent woman by the end, and you see that, which is great. And I don't know, just I just love it. I love the music. I love the animation, and it's just a special. It's a masterpiece. What are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, like I've already talked about my piece, but funny enough, like now just like going straight from Yellow Submarine to Spirited Away, I mean, in a way they are kind of they are kind of similar where they are mostly about Miyazaki. You got the unique spirits in the bathhouse, and in Yellow Submarine you got Pepperland. So yeah, it's more like what works about those two animated films. It's really about the immersiveness that they carry, and some of the greatest examples in animation of how you can make an animated feature feel immersive.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No question. Well, very good. We did it. We did our ranking. So
Yay!
my 10 are Spirited Away, Your Name, The Prince of Egypt, The Song of the Sea, The Secret of Nim, My Neighbor Totoro, The Iron Giant, Over the Garden Wall, Wolf Children, and Anastasia.
And mine, in alphabetical order, is The Iron Giant, Ghost in the Shell, Perfect Blue, The Prince of Egypt, Princess Mononoke, The Road to El Dorado, The Secret of Nim, Spirited Away, Yellow Submarine, and Wolf Walkers.
Yes. So we want to hear what your favorites are. Put in the comment section or on Twitter or whatever social media you use. We would love to hear your picks. And if you want to do a video or a blog post or whatever, tag us. We'd love to hear what you have to say on this topic. And make sure you check out our other episode on Disney and Pixar. And we have more coming up. So it's going to be fun. And Matt, where can people follow you in your content?
Well, for me, you can find me mainly on my YouTube channel, Electric Dragon 505, and on other social medias, whether it be on Patreon, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or Blue Sky. You could just go find me either Matt Brunet or Animat.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, check out the Hallmarkies podcast for more of my thoughts on lots of great romances. Take a look at that. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. Also subscribe to Matt's channel. And we have the Patreon group and merch store. So please take a look at it. You could hashtag Animation Junkie shirts at the merch store. So take a look. And thanks again. This is such a blast. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
All right. See you later, dudes.